Okay, so I am here with JP Fasone, a former Driveline Hitting Trainer, from my personal favorite crop of interns. No offense to anybody else, but pretty elite group we had that summer with you, Connor Watson, Andrew Crushy, all guys who are in affiliate organizations right now, absolutely crushing it. Obviously sad to see them leave me, but very, very happy for these guys. Happy that JP has taken the time to talk today. So yeah, if you want to get into a little bit on your background, who you are, and we can get rolling.
Yeah, yeah. I went to the University of Dallas and played there for 3 years, and then started coaching to finish up my degree. And decided I liked the coaching thing, so I tried it out and went to Lamar Community College in southeastern Colorado. I was there for a year and then a COVID year, so kind of like
Track user.
track user, blast user, weighted bat user, smash or good enough ball user.
Love that.
So got into that, and then our head coach got a job with the Yankees after the fall. So he kind of pushed me to apply for an internship at Driveline. And then I was kind of set to go there the next summer, and then COVID happened, so I transitioned to an online training. Got coached up by Andrew Ike, getting ready to go on the online side. So that was good practice, and then did that kind of through the next year at Lamar, and then came out after that season was over to do my internship, and I was there 2.5, almost 3 years.
2.5 beautiful years.
Yeah, beautiful years doing a little bit of everything, and then got the opportunity to come coach the Red Sox. So meet up with Oach again and John Soteropoulos. So it was a good fit, and definitely missed the time at Driveline, but get some new experiences and hang out with some different guys, which is cool.
Cool. Yeah. So main things we're going to get into today. We want to talk a little bit about off-season training, how to kind of periodize it, how to progress it throughout the off-season, and then I really want to get into in-season training. Specifically, want to talk about the pro side of things, a little bit on how you guys go about it doing with the Red Sox, and really just go from there. So
Yeah.
anything you're able to share would be great. But yeah, to start, let's talk your time from Driveline transitioning into an affiliate organization. Like, is there anything specific that surprised you? Anything that wasn't exactly what you expected? Things that maybe it went poorly at the beginning, went really well. Anything like that? What you got?
Yeah, I think coming in with Oach and John have been here a year, I think, and so they had a pretty good foundation of kind of getting the cages kind of dialed, set up. Used to swinging weighted bats, guys were kind of used to the routine a little bit, especially on the minor league side, which is good. So I think walking into the cages, there wasn't anything that was like too surprising. We're doing bat speed, we had blast sensors and hit tracks and all that good stuff. So that wasn't too surprising. I think the big adjustment for me was understanding kind of like the timetable of when relationships were going to get built with players, and what the expectation was for how good they were going to get. I think coming from Driveline of like, they're paying to be there. They want to be there. They want to hear what you have to say, and they're excited. And so that relationship gets built a lot faster, especially when you're seeing them every single day, all the time. And I think in pro ball, it's slower because you're not with the same group of guys every day. And also you're just another guy out there. So you kind of got to put a little bit more effort in to kind of get to know guys. And also just like, it's going to take more time. You just have to be patient and be around. So I think that was probably the biggest adjustment. It took me a while to get used to that. And then getting comfortable, especially once we transitioned into the season, of setting kind of realistic goals for where I wanted guys to get.
Okay.
I think, we at Driveline, it's 6 week, 4 weeks, you're kind of expected to see some pretty good progress. And especially in season, like, it's just going to be slower, and you have to be a lot more consistent with it. Right. So I think understanding, like for me, hey, like you're not screwing this up because these guys aren't getting significantly better as fast as you want them to. It's just like be patient, trust the process. Like it'll kind of come when it comes. Um, so I think just getting used to knowing new people and how to build those relationships again was definitely different. But something I think I definitely learned a lot about in terms of like how to talk to guys
Yeah.
and kind of break the ice a little bit more, which was good for sure.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I definitely want to get back and peel back some of those layers on setting more realistic goals in season. What kind of gains you can more or less expect? What's realistic, really? But before that, like you landed in a pretty interesting spot, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, transitioning from Driveline to the Red Sox in your situation where Ochart is running the show. Ochart was the original founder for Driveline Hitting. Soteropoulos had been a huge part of things here for the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it was, right? So you rolled into an organization in a system where the philosophy, the pillars are pretty aligned,
yeah,
similar focuses, believe in a lot of the same things, the way you go about training, things like that. Um, so yeah, it's still really interesting to me from there, like what the differences were. But yeah, main thing I want, where I'm going with this, as I'm rambling and getting sidetracked, uh, is just talk to me about what that was like. Talk to me about like what your pillars are, what you guys believe in, what you do. Obviously, it's going to be pretty similar to
yeah.
anybody listening to a Driveline podcast has heard before from a
Mm.
hitting guy. But yeah, talk to me about what the Red Sox are all about.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. Bat speed. We kind of have our core four: bat speed, bat to ball, swing decisions, and then we'll add in ball flight. So we kind of separate uh, the ability to just like make contact in general versus making quality contact, hitting at good launch angles, things like that. So really sticking to those, and I think the kind of adjusting those by guy and figuring out like when to kind of plug and play guys into more bat speed focused or not. Obviously, a lot of our younger players heavier on the bat speed, ball flight side, and then as guys kind of move up in levels, they're bigger, faster, stronger, transitioning a little bit more into kind of swing decisions, bat to ball. And I think the way we've the way John and Ochart kind of presented that to players, I think was big because it's especially for a lot of guys, a lot of Latin dudes, like understanding the kind of metric process and evaluation process is tough, and it's just brand new for guys. So convincing somebody that doing bat speed training in general is like a good idea is already a pretty big hurdle for guys that haven't done it before. So for me coming in, not a big deal. Like I was very comfortable with all of this, but trying to kind of make the argument that this was the best way to train was something that at Driveline you don't really have to deal with because they've
Yeah,
chosen to be
that's
there. You know.
you touched on it a little bit earlier, but that was one of the things that really interested me about your experience, and I definitely want to talk to Och and Sauter about it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously a Driveline, like people coming here, they're seeking it out. They, for the most part,
Yeah.
know what they're coming for,
Yeah.
at least generally,
Yeah.
right? It tends to be a hell of a lot different than most people actually expect it to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like very, very, very different ecosystem where they're here. Guys are generally pretty bought into training. They know it's going to be very difficult, challenging environments. They know they're really going to focus on bat speed, cleaning up mechanics, ball flight, things like that. And generally, it's during the off season when they come in, so you have a lot of time to be hands on and actually try to make changes, and you have longer periods to really drive adaptations. It's obviously not like that in professional baseball. So yeah,
Yeah.
tell me what your experience was like there, really. And
Yeah.
you touched on a big part of it is obviously the relationships you're building and harvesting buy-in out of guys, and really, like you said, really making the argument why these things are important. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. I think when I got here last year at spring training, they had done a good job getting kind of the younger batch of players who maybe a little bit more malleable in terms of kind of what they do for training. They don't have as many years of experience, just kind of doing the same thing over
And
and over.
that makes sense with younger
Right.
players too,
For
because they
sure.
grew up with more of these concepts being more prominent,
Yeah.
see these types of things on social media more often, right?
Yeah.
It's a little different than the older player who didn't necessarily have access to more of the advanced metrics,
Yeah.
maybe the tech where they're getting data in their training environments.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And
correct me if
they're,
I'm wrong, right? I
yeah.
haven't actually worked in professional baseball,
Yeah.
worked with older, more established players plenty of times.
Hmm.
But it's pretty common for the older
Yeah.
player to not have an in-depth understanding of advanced metrics, anything with sabermetrics, like what matters for ball flight data, bat path data, anything like that. But younger players are just exposed to it more often, right? So
Yeah.
would think it's easier to get through to those types of guys.
For sure. And the older guys are typically at higher levels, so they have in their minds more of a reason to continue doing what they've been doing, because
Because they've been
theoretically
successful.
it's
It's
working.
what's
Yeah.
gotten them there.
It's yeah.
You
And I
can't
think
really
that
fault anybody for thinking about it that way.
right. Yeah, for sure. And I think the batch of guys that I worked with for the most part were fairly bought in. I think the big hurdle for a lot of guys was uh, how to train properly. Like, okay, I'm willing to do the training, but if we're gonna do a bat speed day, like we can't do it at 80%. Like you have to have full intent to get the adaptations we're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, you got to go 100%, and you got to keep your volume in a good range, right? Like a lot of guys just are
That's got to
used
be
to
the
lifting.
hard part with the transition from the
Yeah,
facility aspect to the team aspect on a field. Probably don't exactly have as much time
yeah,
before a game to get everything in to get the rep volume in. I know you
yeah.
guys are firm believers in to get better at hitting, you have to hit a lot.
Got to hit a lot.
So
Yeah,
I do want to get into how you guys go about scheduling those types of things,
yeah,
how you make that work to one, like get enough volume while also balancing the workload to where a guy's not getting torched during
yeah.
spring training or during the season when you're playing damn near every day.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely something that's like it was a tough adjustment for me because you just hit like just swing more. Like, what's the problem? And I think especially first year, way underjudged how long 132 games are. Like it's a long season. You got to the halfway mark, I was like, man, I am cooked. I am cooked, and we got
Yeah.
70 games left. And so early in the year, I was just like, we're gonna hit as much as we need to, and like no problems. And so it got to the point where it's like, guys are getting gassed, and we do push them to get a large amount of swing volume. Like if you're gonna be good at hitting, you got to hit a lot. And I think this is just where the relationship aspect comes in of like if a guy comes to me and is like, hey, like I'm not doing XYZ today, like I'm gassed, like body's cooked. I have to know him well enough to be able to say like, is he just wanting to skip bat speed because he doesn't want to do it today, or is he actually like fatigued enough that like he needs a rest day? I think it just came with time and like some experience, getting to know how each individual thinks and what they like to do versus what they need to do, which was kind of a big distinction. And that was just like the big hurdle for a lot of guys. Like you got to hit a lot, but we got to do this the right way. Our focus has to be there. We have to have the right intention. We can't just take swings just to take swings. We're going to hit a lot, but we're going to hit a lot with good intention behind it.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, that's good stuff, first of all. But yeah, let's get into a little bit about the way you look at an off season now
Yeah.
compared to how you looked at it before, right? So like
Yeah.
how would you go about programming a guy out through the off season? Like what does that progression look like? I guess you can get a little more into the weeds on players at different levels,
Yeah.
ages. I don't know how you guys go about. You mentioned like the evaluation process being a little bit different. How you guys go about bucketing people and figuring out who needs what, when, things like that. So
Yeah.
anything you can speak on there?
Yeah. I think it's different. It's different in this side of baseball because everything's based on how they do in the game, right? Like that's what front offices are looking
That's cool.
at.
This
That's
is
what
where I
they're
was going to go next.
yeah, like that's just the reality of it, and it becomes difficult for I think players to separate the two of like I'm getting judged by how I'm doing in the game, but I need to do X, Y, Z. So I think the big sell for the offseason now is like, hey, like you don't have to play anymore. Like here's how you did last year. We got your core 4 grades. You need to improve your bat speed. Like you're 10 points down on your bat speed compared to where we need you to be, and your bat to ball is not very good because you struggle with fastballs or something like that, right? And I think the messaging for guys has to be very specific to one thing because they're going to leave, they're going to go do whatever at home, and if they walk away with just I need to swing faster and I need to hit fastballs more consistently, at the very least, we can be confident that they're focused on that. How they go about doing that, maybe not the most optimal or best, but we know that they're at least focused with one goal. So when they come back, hey, here's how we're going to evaluate how your offseason went. We said you need to swing faster, you need to be able to hit fastballs more consistently. So when we get in the trajectory, we get in the cage, like, are you doing those two things? And I think it gives guys really good feedback on like, okay, was what I did this offseason valuable? Did I come back better than I was before? Or are we now heading into spring training, working on the same things that we worked on, all season? And I think guys love to look at the last year's stats and kind of compare where they are now to where they are last year. And I think when they kind of come back for this preseason time and kind of into spring training, it's like, okay, we got to reassess ourselves. Now we're not comparing you to how you did last year. We're comparing you to where you were when you left the season.
Yeah, when the off season started.
Yeah, yeah, because I would hope you got better since opening day. That's a long period of time. You should have gotten better since opening day. My question is like, have you gotten better in these last 2-3 months? And that's where a lot of the value is going to get driven for them outside of the organization.
Yeah, it's really interesting how you mentioned like almost simplifying and being very specific about a couple goals, a couple things to focus on. Like it's one of the, I guess dangerous might not be the right word, but it's one of the dangerous things with having access to a ton of information,
Yeah.
and especially from your perspective of the last 3 years leading up to this season, like you're used to having so much information at your hands. You're used to having so much time being able to sit down and talk to players about it and like really lean into some things. And it's generally really easy to overload somebody with information, especially when their training age is relatively young. They're new to these types of stimulus, that type of thing, and they're coming to Driveline. They're excited about it. They're like actively seeking out the information. They want it, right?
Yeah.
So it's really easy to overload somebody. It's harder in the facility setting to kind of put up those guardrails, and you can kind of get away with it for those same reasons, right?
Yeah.
But in season in the off season, however, like how does that transition from the start of the off season, where you give guys a couple very specific goals? Do those progress throughout the offseason? Does it really wait until they come back, you see them again, then you kind of reestablish what the next focus is, the next phase?
Yeah. I think because we're not hands-on during the off season for the most part, like it kind of just remains the same. Like this is what we need you to work on for the off season, and we'll kind of reevaluate when they come back. I think when we get into the season, generally, especially on the hitting side, just because the sample size you need is so big to get a lot of data, that those goals don't change too much. But I think the kind of transition time between different goals happens when they're coming back after the off season. We're reevaluating them. Okay, did you hit that goal? Let's move to something else. And about the halfway mark and kind of the end of the season, okay, we've had a big enough sample size. Let's kind of reevaluate what we're struggling with. And I think it's a good time for guys at those kind of key checkpoints to start to use the education that they've had. Like, I think it's just really important for guys, at Driveline, really easy. You're there every day. Guys are constantly talking to you. Like, we can feed you information and educate you to the point that I can overload you with information and you're, enough to kind of process it and then get into the cage. Versus
that's at the core of everything.
The core of everything.
Like,
yeah.
We're obviously assessing hitters, trying to make changes, trying to get guys better, but especially when you have somebody for a short time period, even in the facility, like
Yeah.
couple weeks is still a pretty short time period. Like, you obviously want to make changes, you want to try to make improvements, but the most valuable thing you could do is educate them,
Yeah.
because the vast majority of the time you're working with your athletes, they're going to be remote.
Yeah.
At least in our situation, even if we have somebody for the entire, say we're talking the pro space, right? Like, we have a guy for like 4 months
Yeah.
in the off season. Like, most of their year, if they're on like a year-long plan with us, they're going to be remote. They're going to be in season. They're going to be doing things with their team. They're going to have different coaches, different voices, and that's fine, right? You know, it takes a village. Like, you shouldn't have to be married and siloed to one coach, one voice. It's pretty much doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
But to be able to handle that, like, you really need to know what the hell is going on, what matters, what you should care about, how to interpret information, and how it's relative to you specifically. So the education piece is so important,
Yeah.
and we have way more time for it in our ecosystem, in the facility. We obviously here at Driveline have incredible tools, incredible resources, and software that make it pretty easy to communicate and work with somebody remotely, whether in season or off season. It's pretty awesome. We're very fortunate to have that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a very different dynamic, and I'm
Yeah.
really curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think being in the pro space, I've just kind of doubled down on the idea of how important that is, especially with like guys
Yeah,
moving
you just need
levels.
guys to be self-sufficient, man.
Yeah, like
It makes
they're
them
going to
better.
move
It makes it easier to
levels.
coach them.
They're going to have different coaches. They're going to have different challenges. We're going to be on the road with different cages. Like, they're going to go in the off season and do their own thing. Like, and if they can have enough knowledge, they have a good enough knowledge base that no matter what gets piled on top, they at least keep the foundation of like hitting the ball hard in the air is important. Understanding like how to evaluate ball flight, how to look at my miss, and then work backwards to some type of environment, and really getting
Preach.
like just dialed into like why do we train the way we train? Why do we have things set up for you a certain way? And maybe we'll miss some swings that day, but you're going to really understand like why are we using the long bat? Why are we doing different angle machines? And if you can take away, if they can take away, hey, this is how it's affecting my swing, they can add on whatever other stuff they want, but that foundational level, they're gonna get better. I like to talk about it to kind of like our other coaches or assistant coaches or new guys coming in, like the way we use practice design and use our skill acquisition knowledge to lay out these cage environments is kind of your safety net. It's going to guarantee a baseline level of improvement for every hitter, and anything we can do to improve them more is just icing on the cake. But if we don't get that baseline thing correct every single day all the time, you're just playing with fire. Like, now we're risking something going wrong. And I think if we can build those guardrails using the environmental training, then it frees coaches up from different backgrounds, different perspectives to do things that they maybe otherwise wouldn't, because they're worried about what if this kid gets worse. It's like, well, he's not, because you've laid that foundation of good training
Yeah.
principles.
Yeah, that's why having the pillars and really educating your athletes on it is so important.
Yeah.
And especially at the professional level, having organizational wide things we believe in and care about, top to bottom, and everybody on the same page, pulling the rope in the same direction, is so important. Because you mentioned freeing up coaches. Like, if you have those really established core things we care about, everyone's educated on what it means, how to go about it, what these environments are like, that frees up the coaches to get into the more nuanced things.
Yeah.
Because the athletes become more self-sufficient. They can handle the baseline stuff themselves. So coaches aren't constantly trying to like hold hands, think about this all the time. They can get into the more nuanced things with, maybe it's into the mechanics, than the things that are like feeding into why you can't move the bat fast, why something's going on with your bat path that's really negatively impacting your ball flight. Because like if the hitters can just go out and like do their thing around like the big four, big three in our case, which is essentially the same thing, just don't have bat to ball split into the two.
Mm-hmm.
We look at it the same way. It's like, if you could really educate the hitters on the baseline things, it frees up the coaches to do so much more of the in-depth nuanced things that are like really going to push you over the top, that icing on the cake.
Yeah. And I think for me, like, as a coach, it's so much more relaxing when a guy sees something on Instagram last night and comes into the cage with something just off off the charts wild. And you're like, he'll be okay. Like, I got to let him work through this. Like, I don't have to like panic, jump in and like correct stuff. Like, I can let him kind of go a little bit. And I know that like he's kind of playing within the fences.
Yeah.
To say,
Yeah. It's
you
like
know,
you
like,
have those guardrails. It's like,
yeah,
hey man, like this is kind of ridiculous, but
yeah. But like, if you want to
there
try
could be
it,
something there. And it's
yeah,
like, as long as you can justify how this is going to help one of these 4 things we care about, how it's going to
yeah,
tie into your goals, and like, let's give it a shot. But at the end of the day,
exactly.
like, we got these core things we have to
Yeah,
focus on.
yeah.
Then you can kind of mix this in as you need to.
Yeah, I forget where I heard it, but it's kind of like, you know, would you, if you were playing like football on a cliff, would you play really hard without like any fencing? Like, you're going to be a little bit more conservative. You're going to kind of like pull stuff back. But if we put some like fencing up and you knew you weren't going to fall off, you can kind of like go free, just like run wild. And like, that's kind of the way everything's kind of designed, and like why that player education is so important. Just like
Yeah.
put the fence up to just go and like be
Yeah.
loose
And then
and try
giving them
stuff.
the freedom within
Yeah,
those guardrails is really important, because that's how they're going to learn.
exactly.
Right. And like,
Exactly.
you need that, whether they're going to figure out this random thing they saw on Instagram was complete wash or not. Like,
Right.
they might get something out of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if it's not actively helping them. Like,
Yeah.
they might pull something from it that they could tie to something else that over time becomes valuable.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
at the end of the day, even if it's just like, hey, I know this is not going to help me get to where I want to go based off these goals that have been established for me. So it's like, in the future, it's really easy to just ignore it
Yeah. Exactly.
and then
And
lock in on what actually matters.
especially in professional baseball, where there just are going to be times where you have to kind of pick your battles. Um, like,
No doubt.
you got to kind of let guys do their own thing, and try some stuff that you might think is not the greatest thing for them. And so like having that comfortability to do that, and like confidence to let them do that, builds that relationship a lot faster
Yeah.
with guys.
And it's a way for coaches to learn and grow as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You never know what you're going to learn if you don't let them just try stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's how we all got to where we're at.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Like, when I started at Driveline in 2017, we had a hit tracks and bat speed trainers, and we knew that hitting the ball hard in the air was a good thing. Right. But
Yeah.
man, we didn't know a damn thing about bat path. We didn't know what the top spun line drives with crazy attack angles were actually going to do to your in-game production.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, we had to get weird with what we thought was going to work.
Yeah.
You got to track it, right?
Mhm.
But you have to give something a chance to work or to not work, and that's basically how you learn. That's how you grow, and that's, you just need to be able to constantly iterate on those systems
Yeah.
until you really figure out what does work, and then you get to the point where you have your very well established and data backed pillars,
Yeah.
and you figure out all the different ways to train them and the things that go into them, and then how to blend it from the off season to the season, and you just keep running that flywheel, and then before you know it, your hitters are banging.
Yeah. 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 And I think that the same process that we've gone through as coaches is the same process that players need to go through. And giving them consistent feedback and education and that kind of thing. Like, they get there eventually. It just might take them a little bit longer. You know, it takes some guys longer than others, and you know, it's just kind of how it is. And I think it's kind of your job as a coach to kind of like pull the leash in a certain direction every now and then, and kind of know when to hop in and when to just kind of like,
That's
you gotta let
what
them
the best
figure it
coach.
out.
That's what the best coaches are good at, man.
Yeah.
They have enough feel to pick your battles, like you
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
and know when it's time to kind of rein a hitter back in, or let him kind of run wild. It's like, all right, like, he's in a good enough place. He can go
It'll
experiment.
be
He can
okay.
go
Yeah.
explore. And I built up a good enough relationship with him that if I'm like, hey, what the fuck,
You're
and
right.
you reel them
Right.
back in,
Yeah.
they're gonna come back.
They'll listen. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's talk in season, man.
Yeah.
What does it look like? You've obviously got your 4 pillars. I don't
Yeah.
know how much you can really get into the weeds of what you can share. I don't want to piss off Mr. Ochart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like, how does it work? How does it work? How do you guys balance training, bat speed, bat to ball? Like, obviously a dry line, we've got way more time. We don't have the game aspect to really worry about,
Yeah.
unless it's summer, somebody's playing summer ball. But even then, we're still more focused on the development aspect. So like, how does that work? Like, how do you blend things throughout the week? Do you have guys doing bat speed every day? Do you have certain days for certain things? Does it depend on the guy, depend on the week?
Yeah. I mean, we try and keep it somewhat structured because there is a time constraint to it.
Right.
We only get the cages for so long because the other team's got to hit and things like that. But in general, every guy's going to be a little bit different. We're going to kind of have guys doing, a handful of bat speed days, other guys doing, 1 day of bat speed. They're focused on their ball flight or things like that. I think the biggest thing in season is getting guys to understand that it it's going to take a long time for you to have a bad year, and it's going to take a long time for you to have a good year. Like 132 games is a long time, and 160 plus in the big leagues is even longer. And the reality of it is, at my level in high A, you're really far away from being a big leaguer. It's not close. So there's nothing that's going to click today that's going to get you to the big leagues tomorrow. And what is going to work for you is doing consistently intentional work every single day, the whole season. And if that means that we don't see a lot of change this year, but you come in to spring training next year in a better spot, that's a win for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back to like trying to balance, they are evaluated based on how they do in the game. And understanding that they want to get prepared for the game and they want to feel good heading into the game. So we try and kind of like front load a lot of the more challenging work. And, as we kind of get closer to the game, things get a little bit easier. So we kind of feel a little bit more confident going into it. But every guy's going to be a little bit different. I think the biggest challenge for me last year was just kind of like moderating workload and making sure guys were getting high quality work, not just, I'm tired and I'm working at 60%. I think the conversation with a lot of guys was like, okay, we can pull back. I'd rather have you pull back today and do, some flips and call it a day than
pull back, do flips, cut the rounds down, but
yeah.
keep
And
the
we'll
intensity high.
keep the intensity
It's got
high.
to be deliberate. You have
Yeah.
to be locked in. If you're gassed, that's fine, but the work has to be
It
really,
has to
really
be really
good,
good.
at a lower
Yeah.
volume.
And we'll get back after it tomorrow. That's the nice part about pro ball. Like we'll do it again tomorrow. We don't have to wait. We're gonna do it again tomorrow. So I think the in season training is very similar to our off season training. I think the biggest difference is addressing like the workload issue and starting to convince guys in the long term vision of how the in-season training is going to benefit them 2-3 years down the road, versus how it's going to get ready for them tonight. Like realistically, like I don't care how you do tonight. That's not why we're in the cage right now. Like we're in the cage right now to get you ready for Boston. We're going to get you ready to play in the big leagues, and that's the ultimate goal for every player, in professional baseball, is to get to the big leagues. And that, if that's the case, then 99% of your work volume should be dedicated to achieving that goal.
Yeah, how are you going to get there?
Yeah, exactly. And like, if you're doing bat speed the day before a game and you're like, man, I just feel terrible, when I get to the game and I do bat speed before, am I willing to risk one high A game for your long-term success of gaining bat speed? Yes, 100%. And you have to be comfortable doing that.
Yeah, and that again, that's the hard part we kind of touched on earlier, where it's like to get a player to believe and trust that is
Yeah.
really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Right? Like human nature is a thing. Baseball players in a game of failure, heavy failure, especially when you're development focused for the long term, like it is hard to stomach the 0 for 4s, the 0 for 5s, especially when they start to stack up day over day. It's like that's a really hard thing to do, which is obviously something you guys have done a very good job. Shout out to Oach and Sauter.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to establish that sort of thing org wide top to bottom. Yeah. And it truly has to have everyone aligned to go to that player and tell them it's like, yeah, I'm okay with sacrificing tonight's game
Yeah.
in A ball because I want you to get to this place in a couple of years where you're
Yeah.
a big league caliber player where you have the skills to do that.
Yeah.
And the only way that's possible if the org is fully bought in, everyone on the same page. Because like if they're not, you're going to be telling them this, they're going to hear it from somebody else that's completely different, and they're just not going to know what to do, and they're just going to spin their wheels and go in circles. And so you see a lot of prospects fizzle out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the great part about, I think, the people that we have here. Everybody's on the same page. We like know what the goals are. We know what our big objectives are. And I think the big thing for us and like what the message to the players is consistently is just like, if you want to get to Boston, you have to keep the important things important the whole time. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. Like if you swing, I think it was Bodie did a podcast and he was talking about how easy it is for guys to think that because the numbers are small, like they're not that far away. Like 2 miles an hour average bat speed doesn't sound like a lot to players.
In game, it's a hell of a lot.
In game, it's a hell of a lot,
it's
and like
hell of a lot.
That's going to require.
You can gain 2 miles an hour in your off-season training.
Yeah,
pretty quickly.
But doing that
to truly carry it over to the season, especially to a point where you're maintaining it throughout the season.
Yes,
that's really fucking hard to do.
Yeah, and
that is really difficult to do.
And for us, where it's like most of the largest chunk of our training time comes in season, like adding bat speed in season is very hard. Like you're spending half your year in a time where adding bat speed is difficult, and so for you to gain bat speed during that period and put yourself even further ahead than the guys around you, it's going to require that consistent dedication. And like that's what it takes to get another mile an hour bat speed during the season, another 2 miles an hour bat speed. And
that number seems so small
on
paper,
yeah.
But the impact it has in a game is insane.
Massive. Yeah.
It's insane.
And if you're, you got drafted this year and we sit down and go, hey, you're swinging 4 miles an hour slower than you need to be based on, your ball flight and your position and all of that. If you want to be a big leaguer, you need to add 4 miles an hour bat speed. That sounds easy. I'll do that. I'll do that tomorrow. No problem. But like realistically, that's going to take a year, 2 years of like consistent work. And you're going to have to be super on board with that idea because it's really easy to regress. It's really easy to go backwards. It's easy to go like, hey, I'm in season, I'm going to take some time off. And then you blink and you come back in the off season ready to start training again. You're swinging 2 miles an hour slower now.
Yeah. Now you need to make up 6 miles an hour.
Yeah. And now it's 4 years, 5 years down the road. And you're like, man, I'm
same guy.
I'm old and I'm in the same, I'm older. I'm, in single A, double A. I'm like, man, I'm not getting any chances anymore. It's like, yeah, because that young kid that took your spot, like he wanted it more. Like he focused on the important stuff longer.
And that's the hard part about it too. Like it really truly comes down to monitoring workload in season. And I want to ask you a little bit about how you guys go about doing that. But like it's not as simple as just ripping bat speed trainers throughout the year to raise the bat speed. There is so much else that comes into play. So many variables. Like you definitely have to be dialed with that work in your training. Whether the volume is going to be high that day or low that day, you have to be absolutely locked in. And even if you're not raising your speed that day and you're not seeing it, like you have to push that stimulus.
You got to keep pushing
to try to break through those plateaus. You just have to keep pushing it. Like over time, that's what really works. But that being said, like you have to be dialed with sleep. Yeah. And that's got to be pretty damn difficult to do in a minor league season. You're on the road all the time. Yeah. You got to be dialed with your nutrition. Like you got to be dialed with the mental health. You got to be dialed with like your personal life and the external stressors. Right. What did the great Marshawn Lynch say? Take care of y'all's mentals and y'all's chickens, right? Like that's like really, really important. If you want to gain speed over a couple year time frame, like there's so many things that go into it. It's not as simple as like, hey, I'm getting after it when I'm hitting. It's not that simple. You got to be dialed with the weight room. Yeah, you have to stick with the weight room. You have to find ways to recover. You got to find ways to have your peace and your mental health, so you're just not mentally fatigued. Your CNS is going to be torched over 132 game season. Like you said, it is really long. It's long and it's a grind day in and day out.
Yeah. And I think, it's the way we go about things, I think is just a testament to kind of like how the whole system's structured. I think all the different departments are really on board with monitoring workload, understanding when guys need to be pushed and when they need to kind of get pulled back. And it goes from strength staff, defensive coaches, managers, kind of keeping track of how many innings guys are playing and how far they're running and how many swings we're taking and kind of putting all that together. And I also think there's kind of, you know, some soft skill to it too, of just like, yeah, numbers look good, but he looks like he could fall asleep at shortstop right now. Like, you know, maybe we pull back a little bit. And so I think that's been the big thing. I think where guys struggle the most is the sleep, you know, and part of that's, yes, our schedule is difficult. Like, you're on the road, you're playing night games, like, but I also think they're like, we had an average age of 20-ish. So you're talking like freshman, sophomore in high school. Like, when I was a freshman, sophomore in high school, like, I'm going to play video games all day. Like, I'm not going to go to bed early and like
freshman, sophomore, college.
I
got you.
Like, and so that's where I think some of the maturity that happens over the course of the year is really cool to watch, where guys start to understand, like, I do this professionally, and if I really want to get good, like you said, like, it takes a lot more than just like, I go hard in the cages. Like, I have to take care of every aspect of my performance.
Easier said than done.
Much easier said than done, even for coaches.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah, of course.
Like, it's the same battle. And like, guys, you know, last year, I'll say, you know, first year in pro ball, maybe got a little doughy around the edges. Players helped me, you know, stay accountable, and you know, and so I think the nice part about having a lot of guys similar age, you know, in a clubhouse, like, we're together every day, is like, you get to know everybody really well. And I think what John and Oach have done a really good job of is getting all the players on the same page, and they do a really good job of keeping guys accountable, and keeping coaches accountable too, which is huge.
That's called culture, baby.
yeah, just really good culture all around.
It's really important. It's been fun to watch. Obviously, know a lot of you guys very well. Love you all dearly. I almost feel like an extension of it from afar, you know. It's like huge Red Sox fan. Never thought I'd say that growing up, but yeah, huge Red Sox fan these days.
Yeah.
This is great, man.
Awesome. Yeah.
How's the fungo game?
The fungo game's okay. I do not hit a ton of fungo. I mean, we have enough coaches that I don't need to hit fungo, but I do bust it out every now and then. I think the fungo golf is kind of where I've kind of found
That's
the niche.
What I was gonna ask next.
Yeah. Get a little rain delay, get out there, play some fungo golf, especially in the mornings, because, you know, we'll get to the office. Coaches are in there a little bit earlier. You know, get your work done a little bit faster than you thought. Go out to the stadium and fungo golf around.
Have you tried? I have tried this. It's difficult. Have you tried a little fungo golf with a smash ball?
I have not, but that sounds tough.
Give it a go.
I think the slice with the smash ball would look like the golf course. Of just
give it a go, man. It'd be fun.
How's
the golf game? You able to play a bunch this off season?
Yeah, played a good amount. And you know, I get out there during the year too, which is nice on off days and stuff like that. And that was the cool part about traveling. You're just like, you know, you got an off day in Rome, Georgia, and you get to find a cool little course out there and go play for a day, which is cool.
Get to see different things you never thought you'd get to see.
Yeah, and different parts of the country. You know, you're not really excited to travel to on a vacation, but, you know, you're there, you might as well go explore a little bit.
Make the most of it, huh?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but last couple things, I want your favorite ways to train each of the big four during the season.
Ooh, okay. During the season, I mean, bat speed's easy. Get some sleep, swing the bat as fast as you can when we have bat speed days, and that's about it. Get jacked in the weight room. You know, that's the other thing. Eat a ton. So
lifting in season is pretty important for the Bo Sox.
Lifting in season is really important, and eating enough food, I think, is really important. I think you know,
that might be the harder part.
I was gonna say that's the harder part.
high quality calories, nutrient dense
Yeah.
calories.
And it's not, I think the Red Sox do a great job of like providing meals and food and, everything you could want. I mean, it's professional baseball. Like everything you could dream of needing is there, but it's
There's only so
different
much
when
time in the
you're,
day.
yeah, so much time in the day. And like, if I feel full, I don't, I'm not going to go seek out food.
Mm-hmm.
But for a lot of guys, like you're burning so many calories, like you feeling full is not good enough. Like you need to eat more. So I think eating a ton, lifting a ton, swinging fast when you can. Ball flight wise, man, air pole, it would be the biggest
There's a
thing.
lot of different ways you can go with this one.
Yeah,
I've
a
had to
lot of
switch it
different
up.
ways. I think one of the biggest biggest things for guys that I work with is not able to pull the ball in the air consistently. So
And how you go about doing it, it's kind of a trap question because
yeah,
it's obviously going to depend on the guy a little bit.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like, okay, like why is your
Why?
ball flight a
Right,
problem? And then you're
exactly.
going to lean
What's your
into them
bat path look
specifically,
like?
like how this person needs it.
Yeah, I think my favorite way to go about it is like big fan of just pull side curveball smash balls with like a fungo long bat, and
Yeah,
you just figure out
you
how
got to
to hit it
sequence
out in
well.
front.
You got to maintain your posture.
Yeah,
You're
and it's
moving the thing
also
really fast, so you can't really get away with cheating at all. You have to be
you
efficient to
have to be
control it out
efficient.
in front.
Yeah, and I think especially for guys that like, oh man, I just like top spin the ball on the pull side all the time. It's like, well, you're gonna top spin the ball a lot if you do that, but you're gonna figure out how to stop doing that at some point. So,
Sometimes you got to feed the flaw, man,
yeah,
to really get
exactly,
somebody to understand,
exactly.
hey, this is a fucking problem, and
Yeah,
this is why.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again until you make an adjustment.
Yeah. I had a player ask me during the year, it's like, man, why is it that you get excited when we like don't hit good in the cage? I'm like, because that means we're working on something that you're not good at.
Teachable moments, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Because that means you're bad at it, and we're working on something you're bad at, which is good.
Failure in practice is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah,
That's how you learn.
exactly. Bat to ball is kind of similar. I mean, it could be anything, but I think most of the
Similar as in it
time,
depends.
yeah, it depends.
Depends. Is it a bat path issue?
Yeah, is it a bat path
Is it
issue?
an
Is it
approach thing?
a loading
Is
issue?
it a
Like you
vision
can't
thing?
control how fast you go forward. I think for a lot of guys, it's typically kind of a mix of both. Either like you got a point of contact that you can't hit. I can't hit anything deep, so I have to go get everything out front. So I swing and miss a lot at
Yep, overcommit.
stuff. Yeah. Um, so I think a lot of bat path stuff. I like to do like open side things to try and create some barrel depth and kind of start from the back of the path to work forward.
Progress it out. Like start deep, getting behind
Start
it,
deep,
progress the point of
progress
contact
the
out
point of
front.
contact out front. So like starting short bat, offset open, things like that. Kind of maintain posture early, get the bat in the right spot, kind of start there, get that dialed. We'll work the point of contacts further out front when we get there. And then swing decision wise, I wouldn't say necessarily there's a drill for it, but I'm willing to bet 75% of hitters at the amateur level, especially, but in lower level professional baseball, just swing too much. Just stop swinging so much. If you're swinging 80% of the time, you're going to swing at bad pitches at
Yeah, it's
some
pretty
point.
simple. You just look at how often pitches are in the zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
If you're
this is how
swinging at
often
a
they're in
lot
the
of them,
zone. This is how often you're swinging.
yeah,
There's a big
it's
difference
a big
there, my friend.
difference. Yeah. So I think for most of the guys, just like, hey, just stop swinging. Like, look for a cookie, and I guarantee you'll swing less, and then you'll stop swinging at bad pitches.
Pick a very small window to focus on and just commit to it. And even in practice, like even in practice, it's like a underappreciated skill
Yeah.
where it's like only swing at a pitch in a
Yeah.
certain spot.
Exactly.
If
Exactly.
it's not there, be okay taking it,
Yeah.
which is challenging in all settings for hitters, right? Guys want to get their reps in and swing. They want to work on swing things, right? But a lot of times improving your swing decisions can be as simple as being okay taking strikes in practice if they're not a pitch you feel like you could do damage on.
Yeah.
Especially like obviously the environment is important there.
Yeah.
Right? If the focus is like, you can split it. It could be as simple as splitting it. It's like, all right, we're working leverage count here, leverage count approach, or 2 strikes. All
Yeah.
right, like leverage count, you're looking for like a very small window, trying to get your A swing off. If it's not there, don't swing at it. If you do swing, get your A swing off and be okay missing. Don't
Yeah.
slow yourself down to make contact, right? But
Yeah. And
really
razor.
commit to it,
Yeah.
and you're
And
going to get a lot of value out of that in your practice, and that sort of thing does translate to the game.
yeah. And raise your standard for what you're expecting the outcome to be. Like, am I just swinging at pitches that I think I can make contact with? Am I just swinging at pitches I think I can hit a line drive with? Like, I'm only swinging at pitches I can hit for a double or better. Like that, like keep raising that expectation, especially for really good hitters. Like, you can get away with swinging at everything because they're just good hitters. It's like, well, no, like now
You
you
can
have
more or
to.
less out athlete the competition.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, well, that's great, but like
At some point,
now,
the competition is going to catch up,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
have no solutions at
yeah,
that point, and you're going to
and you're gonna
struggle.
have to figure it out. So, yeah, keep raising the expectation of like what you're actually trying to do with those pitches. I think helps.
Yeah, so having pretty clear goals is important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in basically everything. And yeah, I
yeah,
kind of set you up there with your favorite ways to train each of the 4 skills.
yeah.
But you and I both know that the best environments, best training, best practice environments, you're going to get a little bit of all of it.
All
And
the
if you
time.
set it up well with the right type of intentions, the right type of constraints, whatever, right? Like if you set up the environment really, really well,
You're
you
gonna
can
get a
get
little bit of
positive
everything.
adaptations in all of those skills.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just have to
100%.
set the intentions the right way.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what setting that good foundation that we started off with is all about. It's just like no matter what, you could kind of do this whatever way you want. But as a coach, I've set this up to the point that we're going to touch on everything all the
Mm-hmm.
time, every single
It's
day.
the hard part about hitting. Hard part about developing hitters is that there's so much gray area.
Yeah,
especially in a situation where, as a hitter, you're reactionary, right? Like
yeah,
you're not in control of very much. The pitcher's in control of basically everything.
yeah,
Game state is going to dictate a lot of things as well. Basically, the only thing you can control is your intention. And you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier with like having issues with something maybe something's going on with your load or whatever. Like you can basically control your intentions and you can control your tempo in the box.
yeah, and
Like
that's about it.
pretty much it, right? So if you could set up good environments to really hit on all these different skills, you're going to get a lot out of guys, and it's really, really important that they're educated and they know what they're doing and why.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And then they can start just doing whatever, like go explore, see what happens.
Yeah, a lot of different ways to improve.
Yeah,
As long as it's within those guardrails we're talking about, we're not playing football on the cliff without a fence.
Yeah,
right. You can do a lot of things within those guardrails to improve. You just have to know what you're actually trying to improve on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, you got to have a clear objective of where you're trying to go.
No goals.
No goals.
Soteropoulos.
Yeah. Can't have no goals. Yeah. Can't have no goals.
Well, hey, man, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
You got anything else you want to get on before we go?
I don't think so. No. Yeah. I mean, proud member of the Driveline alumni, and the Tanner Stokey coaching tree, which is always good. But yeah, I mean, man, watch the Red Sox. We're gonna win a couple World Series in a couple years.
Go Sox, baby. Well, yeah. Again, man, really appreciate your time. It's good to see you. Good talking to you.
Good seeing you.
Best of luck this year.
Absolutely.
All right.